Welcome you to Porch Talk. This is your host, Alan, and we're going out to the West Coast to San Francisco today to talk to Mad Good. We got Konstantin Domnitser. Man, how you doing? Did I get the last name right?
I think you got it pretty good. Yeah, I appreciate the effort.
I'm trying over here. Well, man, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up? Where are you from?
Uh, yeah, we can just start right into bio stuff. Yeah, I was born in well, a lot of people have heard of it now. I was born in Kiev, which is in Ukraine.
Very
Um,
popular place in the world right now.
it's very topical. And I was very young when we moved. We moved first to Italy and then to the United States, which is kind of pretty quick transition. In the late '80s, and I grew up in New York, pretty much since I was like 4 years old, and went to school there, went to college upstate New York at Binghamton University, and then lived in Jersey for a while, and then ended up getting out to California about 10 years ago. I had a opportunity through work to come out here, and I'd been coming out to California like every couple of months for work anyway, and each time I came out here, it was like the weather was like a little nicer,
Uh-huh.
and just every time there's something different that caught me. And right when I moved out here, it was like the drought out here, so it never rained, which was beautiful. And there was like a blizzard in New York, like right after, and so it just cemented cemented my decision.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
yeah, I've been in the Bay Area for about 10 years now.
Nice. Man, there's a song. It's called "The Golden State," and the line in it is, "Why is everyone still singing about California?" Do you think like the location and the view and the weather does that influence a lot of your creativity?
It's a good question. I don't think so. It's kind of funny that I ended up here. I see myself as more of an indoor person, to be honest. And one of the funny things out here is like you ask somebody what their hobbies are, and they'll say like, I like hiking, I like running, I like rock climbing, I like camping, and they go down a list, and it's going to be like the 10th thing before it's something that's not like an outdoorsman activity.
Uh-huh.
And I think that uh, I think that for me, I think that sometimes those kind of things I like, not because they're directly inspiring to me, but I feel like getting out into nature and stuff like that, seeing the beauty is like something that I do socially. And when you're in that environment with somebody else, like that opens the door for a lot of good conversations and stuff like that. Whereas if you're just hanging out inside, you got your phone nearby, whatever, it's so easy to get distracted, get pulled onto something else. But going for a hike for me is like doing a podcast, or like listening to a podcast, right? It's an opportunity to get into like the flow with somebody for an hour or something like that.
Yeah,
So I think
absolutely.
that's kind of my connection to like the outdoors. And but it is an absolutely beautiful state. Like that's definitely the case. You go on the coast here, and um, growing up in New York, like on the coast, it's like the beaches are the beaches are dirty and they're beautiful and they're warm and stuff. The water's warm. You can go for a swim, but uh, just I think coming out here, it's more kind of pristine and separated from like the rest of the state when you go to the coast and stuff. And yeah, there's something about that that's appealing.
Cool, man. Well, just to go back to early days, with the parents going from Kiev to Italy to the United States, uh, was your dad or mother, were they entrepreneurs or uh, just looking for opportunity for you, or what was their mission?
Yeah, I think that a lot of it was for me and my brother. He was even younger than me when we left. A lot of it's for us, and I think for themselves as well. So my family's Jewish background, and that part of the world, that was still like a meaningful thing in like a bad way. And so the U.S. is for the most part is a place where that doesn't matter that much.
Hmm.
Um, and certainly, in 2023, it doesn't matter as much. And so my family like all left. So it wasn't just my parents and our immediate family. All of us left as soon as we could. And some of them moved to Israel and some of them moved to the United States.
Okay,
I think
cool.
it's really about that. I think like there's still a big like cultural component that's like with the language and the food and there's a certain certain way of thinking about things that's definitely still very much like influenced by like the Soviet Union, Russian, Ukrainian kind of mix of cultures and stuff. But I think just growing up, for them growing up Jewish, they face a lot of very specific adversity. Like my dad got his ass kicked for being Jewish. My mom couldn't get to the university she would want to go to because they wouldn't let Jews in, things like that, like kind of under the table, not officially, but effectively
Yeah,
couldn't. Um, and so they didn't want me to experience that, and I never experienced that, right? So obviously, their number one goal um, was to
yeah.
look out for each other, and yeah, we didn't face that growing up here.
Man, I appreciate you opening up about that. I mean, I think that's one thing, a lot of people don't think about of and this anti-Semitism is still a very huge thing even in 2023. But I think it's like you said, in the United States, maybe not so much, but in different parts of the world, I've got Jewish friends all over the world, and it's kind of remarkable to hear some of the things that happen to them just because of their ethnicity. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's nice talking to you also because I think that like mo I just like meeting people from different places, you know.
Hmm.
I don't know exactly where you're from. Like I guess by your accent, the region of the United
Yeah,
States, sort of. Um, and
Kennedy, Alabama, man.
I've never been to Alabama, and I don't think I know anybody personally from Alabama, and that's something that like, especially in 2023, I do feel like there's so many kind of people putting themselves into like different camps and stuff, and dividing each other. And like I want to meet people from all over the place, and I think that you really get a better perspective on the world. Like I think a lot of times people I'm friends with are also immigrants, even if they're from like another country,
Hmm.
just because like they they're I feel like they're kind of like a little bit sometimes level-headed about how certain things are. They see things that are good and they see things that are bad. Like they see both sides. They don't go too far, like saying, you know, oh, this place that we're going up in now is like the worst place in the world or the best place in the world. Like because they have some perspective of having seen things on in another place and how else it could be. So a lot of times I feel like I'm on the same like wavelength with other immigrants, even from India or something, or from China, uh, even though
Hmm.
culturally we're so different, but there's something we have in common. Um, so yeah, like I said, it's nice to meet you, and I've literally never met anybody from Alabama, and even just having a conversation, it feels like
Yeah.
something I look forward to. Yeah, just for that reason.
Uh, for better or worse, man, I don't know what where to say. I am on my Alabamian chart, but I've been lucky enough to be able to travel. I've been to South America a couple of times, Central America, and I mean, like you said, that offered a lot of perspective for the world. And I've been lucky enough to have met people from all over the world, and I still talk to them to this day. And like you said, man, it's just if you get locked into a geographical location and you close yourself off, it's easy to put yourself in a camp, and it's also a lot easier to not understand where other people are coming from, and it's only a disservice to yourself, really. So, like I've you immigrant friends, man. Yeah, I used to live down in Mobile. That's the Bay Area in Alabama, and we had a immigrant house for all these. I mean, they were getting off the loaders, the big barges that were bringing everything in, and they were literally from every part of the world, and met a lot of Croatians predominantly. That's where a lot of them would be from, and it was
Mm.
always remarkable just to hear stories from that part of the world.
Yeah, and I think like um, I don't think, I feel a little bit like telling people they have to travel to get culture. I think it's a little bit, going too far. Like it's very, very possible. And some people can't, manage that with their lifestyle and things like that. And it's totally, totally possible to be a very open-minded, thoughtful person who, who's lives in the town that they were born in, right?
Hmm.
There's um so there's different, I think there's different ways to kind of open yourself up to different things. And I think travel is one way. And you could also travel just, take photos of food and post them on Instagram. And that's also a thing. And you're going
Yeah.
to get some perspective. And actually, you might be better off if you want to get to know another culture, sitting at home and reading a book by, an author from another country. So there's different ways, I think, to do that. Um, but yeah, I don't remember how we got on this topic, but I definitely think that that aspect of my life I think has influenced me and probably influenced the music as well.
Yeah, well, cool, man. So growing up, New York, New Jersey, got out. You're in California now. Tell me a little bit about school and your interests when you were coming up out of high school, and would you go to college?
I went to college at Binghamton University, which is a state school upstate New York. So, um,
What was you
I,
interested in?
so that's I was interested in a lot of things. I studied electrical engineering.
Oh, sweet, we got something coming on that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I liked math when I was growing up, and I liked science and especially physics when I hit physics in high school. And then I was looking at college and I was thinking, like, what is like a I think this is part of the influence of growing up in an immigrant family as well. Like they were very non-pushy, like compared to what I've heard of many other families who you have to be a doctor, lawyer, whatever, engineer. But I do think there's a little bit of like a practical mentality um, that kind of seeps in. And so I'm thinking like, what is like a major that sounds like a job, you know?
Hmm.
And so like, I'm probably not going to be a physicist. So engineer is a job, and so electrical engineering is like kind of like that, right? And
Yeah.
so that was really the decision process is really simple. Doing that, and then in college, I kind of fell out of love with that for a while, and I almost became a teacher coming out of college. And like at the last, so I accepted a job teaching high school because I think just I love teaching things. We can talk more about that, like being a father now. Like that's the thing I look forward to the most is um, when he's like getting a little bit older and our communication is, a higher fidelity when he starts speaking, and
Hmm.
all the things I could show him if he's interested in something, explore that together. But yeah, I almost became a teacher, and the last minute I switched back and had an opportunity to work as an engineer. Um, but I ended up changing careers like 3 or 4 times, like since then. I think because it wasn't like something that connected me. But funny enough, like I'm an engineer now. I'm a software engineer, and like it came all the way back around. Like I had left engineering, and I think that when you're like in your, for me at least, it was in like my 20s, that I really just like try to grab onto whatever was trendy or popular, right, to do, and something seems interesting because somebody else is doing it, and I kind of got away in doing different kinds of work. Um, and then it's kind of something inside me just felt like I feel myself getting stupider. Like I feel myself like I'm not interested in things I used to be interested in. Like if there's something challenging in front of me, I don't want to take on that challenge. I want to just say, somebody else can do it, right? I don't want to think about it. And I used to be somebody like really into that. If it's like a puzzle, I'm going to try to solve it.
Hmm.
And I was like, you know, and I think like when you're a kid, you sometimes know best, like what you really like before you get too influenced by other people. And so I ended up getting into software engineering, which I love. Um, and maybe if I had stuck around with my first engineering job, I would have loved that too. I just wasn't open to that at that time. I think I was looking at other people too much. Like these people are going to finance, these people are doing kind of like other stuff, and and instead of just listening to like what spoke to me as a child, which is like problem solving and analyzing things, and that's a lot of what you do in engineering. Um, so kind of super happy to come full circle in a way
Yeah.
and be back in that space.
Yeah. And man, congratulations on fatherhood. I'm not a father yet. I hope to be one day, but I think you painted that very well. Like what it means to be a father, right there with the way that you put it. Like you can't wait till he's old enough to where he's talking and exploring, and you can explore those ideas with him and kind of lead him and give him a guide. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think like
go
before
ahead.
that, it's like a little bit. I think it's different for everyone. Like when he was really young, it made me really anxious, and I'd get really frustrated. Like um, if he had trouble sleeping, and my inability to like connect with him and soothe him or put him to sleep, I got really frustrated, and my wife had to like, you know, calm me down, like give me some advice, like, hey, you can't show that to him. Like he's gonna feel that, like your frustration dealing with him. It's gonna make him feel like a burden. And I know I hate feeling that way. If I feel like I'm a burden to someone, that's a terrible feeling. Um, and so that kind of like, rewired my brain. I kind of like found some kind of Zen zen place that even if he's screaming in my face or something, it's late at night, I'm not sleeping, like it's okay, it's all good. Like we're on this together. Um, and kind of got that turnaround after a little while. And then since then, it's been like just an amazing
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Well, what about music, man? How would that come into your life? What would make you want to pick up an instrument?
Yeah. I always loved music when I was a kid. Like even when I was back in Ukraine, my parents told me I was always singing different songs and stuff. And like my earliest musical memories are just stuff my dad would play on the radio. And neither of
Hmm.
my parents like big music fans, but I remember hearing like the Beatles and Elton John back on like K Rock in New York, which was like the rock station. I don't know. I don't think it exists anymore. At some point, it turned into something else, but it used to be like a classic rock station and like a modern rock station. And those are like the first things I remember hearing myself. And then I, I think similar to like what I just talked about with career, I kind of just went off into like other things. Like I just started listening to like top 40 music that I didn't, wasn't really feeling, but that's what everybody in school was listening to. So I started listening to it as well.
Hmm.
And then later when the album that like got me back into music was Californication by the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Shout out
Uh,
to him, man.
yeah.
That's a
And
great book too. His Ketis's Scar Tissue book.
yeah, I haven't read the whole thing. I read like excerpts, which are cool though.
Yeah, what a story. But anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's like I think a big thing is their story, right? Like music is not just like what you hear. It's also connecting to those individuals. And I also remember watching like the VH1 behind the music about them and stuff and seeing their story and their experiences. Um, and it just feels all their music feels so genuine to me. Like even if the songs that have like some nonsense lyrics, but like the way that they're being expressed, they just come across as like 100% genuine. Like and all at least like the good stuff. And that's something that I love and I connect to immediately. The same way you connect to like a, I don't know, a TV show or something or a book where like the characters like you love. It
Hmm.
becomes more than just a story. It's like I want to know what these characters are going to do next. So that was like an album that like kind of knocked me back into like, okay, like I wanted to listen to this like nonstop. I want to know who influenced them and I want to go listen to that music. And like that just sets you off in that whole chain reaction, right? Of like you look
Oh
at
yeah.
your favorite musicians and trace that back and then go sideways. You look at their peers, like, oh, who else is going up in the 90s? All like grunge and alternative rock and college rock and stuff in the 80s. And like I still love classic rock too, going back to that. But that was like the band and the album that set off this like that chain reaction of looking at music. And yeah, really at the end of and I think I don't know, I immediately like the thing that most interested me was like how the songs were written or created. That's the thing that stood out the most. So at the end of high school, yeah, is when I picked up a guitar for
Yeah.
the first. Yeah.
How long would it be until you would venture off into writing your own music? And what would make you want to be that creative? Why not just cover the Chili Peppers, right?
I think I started right away. It was really bad, but I think I started right away. Somewhere I might be able to dig up some like notebook of lyrics from like freshman year or something. Um, why? I think, well, yeah, I don't know if it's because of like the connection with that band specifically, but like I feel like the ethos of that music is like doing things yourself, right? Like I'm not a especially good singer, but I kind of feel like I'm gonna sing my songs. Why? Because they're my songs, and
Yeah.
nobody's gonna feel them the way that I feel them.
Yeah. Your
And so
stories.
yeah, and I feel like you could tell that right away from those bands that I love, like even ones that are like Anthony Kiedis is not an especially strong singer himself, like in a traditional way. He has his own like style, and like a lot of those voicing guys who are good singers, but they have their own style, right? And they're all writing their own songs. They're not doing cover songs unless it's really obvious, like one cover song or something. But they're not putting out an album of cover songs. So I know the whole culture behind that music, um, I think spoke to me also. It's like it's kind of a uh, taking music seriously in a way, right? It's not just like, oh, I'm going to pick up something I heard somebody else made. It looks cool. I'll put a pretty like shine on it and I'll call it something of my own. It's like the lyrics are going to come from something really inside of you. They're really going to craft it. They're really going to deliver it with passion. and in their own unique style, not trying to conform to somebody else's expectations. And they're just going to hope that there's some people out there that vibe with that. Um, so I think just because of that music that I fell in love with, that's what spoke to me. And maybe if the first song that spoke to me was like pop music, or if it was like hip hop, then I'd think like, okay, I'm gonna find somebody else to get me some beats, and I'm gonna rap, right? Because that's like the way things are done in that genre.
Hmm.
Or if I was really into classical music, like there's no expectations of like the greatest violinist in the world should also be composing for violin. But when we talk about who's the greatest guitarist, like let's say people who love, Hendrix or whoever, really they're talking about like they're not even talking about playing the guitar. They're talking about like innovating, writing music for guitar. Like Hendrix is like a Beethoven, right? He's not like you talk Perlman or somebody, right? Like playing violin. It's about like the innovation and creating things yourself. So yeah, just I think the culture of the kind of music that I love
Yeah.
automatically want to write songs. Yeah.
And so just fresh out of high school, pick the guitar up and you out the gate were beginning to craft and create your own songs. Uh, Tell me a little bit about that journey up to today. New album coming out. That's what we're here to talk about. It's got to be
Yeah.
exciting, right?
Yeah, totally. I think like I don't know how it was for other people, but for me, again, similar to what I talked about before, like I got away for a while. And a lot of well, I'll get to the album, but I'd have the guitar and I'd pick it up a little bit, and I'd just do like what you said, like play a cover song, just pick up some song I heard on the radio and like mess around with it for a while and put the guitar back down. And I spent a lot of time on it, but I wasn't creating anything like
Hmm.
meaningful. I'd like if I had an idea, like a lot of times, like be late at night, your brain is kind of like half melted and you're tired and something pops into your head. I'd get up and record it, like a 30-second idea and like stash it away, um, and not do anything with it. And I think it was only once I was already in Bay Area and had some like additional like life experiences, and I felt like I had a lot to get out. And I had a friend that I met, my friend Colby, shout out Colby. He writes music too. He lives in LA, and he he mentioned that he also writes songs, plays guitar. Like, oh, let's jam a little bit, let's play some songs. And I don't know how it is. Maybe this is like is this too pessimistic, but maybe because I don't run around like musician circles. A lot of times somebody shares something and I'm going to listen to it because I'm a friend and I care, but it's not necessarily something that's going to connect with me, right? Like somebody might have their music, I'm like, it's cool, but it's not something I'm going to listen to again. And this is different. Like he played me a couple songs. I'm like, damn, I if this was like recorded right now, I'd add it, I'd be listening to it right now. And I wish I wrote that song. And I played him like a song I wrote a while ago too. And he
Hmm.
felt the same way, right? So we connected right away and started like jamming and a little bit of co-writing, but a lot of just like sending each other stuff. Like I'm going to send you what I'm working on. What do you think? Like back and forth. Um, and that got me so excited to start like taking my music and like let me let me try to rewrite it. Is something I wrote, like had like a 30-second snippet. Let me try to see if I can add to that, build it into a full song. And because I had somebody who's interested in listening to it, and as a musician, they would understand if I sent them like a 30-second crappy clip of me and an acoustic guitar. They know that there's a vision for something else beyond that, and and um and just the excitement of like that sharing back and forth got me like um working on the songs again until like I felt like okay, now like I have a decision, like I can just keep doing this or I can actually try to like take it seriously, record it. And it's just something that felt like I would always regret if I didn't try to do that. If I didn't try to really finish my work, put it out there, share it with people, um, I would regret it for the rest of my life.
I wanted
And
to go
yeah,
ahead. Go ahead.
no, that I think that's it. Like
Okay.
I have to do it and see what I can create if I put my mind to it, and see if anybody else is interested.
I wanted to see what you thought about this is one thing I've been learning, and these are with songs of mine that they've been recorded, and I mean they're readily available on the internet, and whomever can go listen to them. But one thing I've learned is they may be 4, 5 years old, maybe 10 years old now, but I don't think a song is ever finished. And what I mean by that is, let's say I'm playing a show or I host the open mic here in town, and we like to have a big jam at the end. And some of the guys have been playing with me on that stage long enough now to where my songs had become their songs,
Mm.
and they brought their own flavor to the table, and it's become something bigger than what I envisioned. And now they're part of the vision, and that's one thing that we've been discussing about how we don't think a song is ever done because think about I think Bob Dylan was infamous for this is him playing today. A friend of mine recently went and saw him play, and he said about half the crowd seemed disappointed that it
Mm.
wasn't the way it used to be. And he was like, "But I think Bob believes in the fact that a song it ages just like a human does. It has a life of its own. It changes." And I've always, and the more I think about it and talk about it, I was like, man, I really like this idea. So, I mean, what do you think about it?
I think it's a good idea. And I saw Bob Dylan in college, and yeah, he came by, and we barely recognized any song until it was like halfway into the song. Like, oh, okay, I think I heard a couple.
Yeah.
I know. Um, I think that I think that it's true, but you kind of need to also like tell yourself that you're done, or else like I'll go crazy. Like, and I think
Yeah.
it's like the feeling inside like before it's done is like a compulsion. Like you're like this, you're disappointed, and you're like, I need to finish this. I need to finish this. And I think when you call it done, that burden gets lifted off your shoulders, and then
Okay.
now it's like a joy, right? Like you go on stage with your buddies, and like you all know the song, and you mess around with it. You try something different. You're playing with it now, and if that's the mindset you can have before you record the song, like I envy you, because I think for me it's like there's a joy when the spark of the song is there, and there's a joy in like having the finished product, and there's a lot of like pain in the middle, um until I feel like I can
Yeah.
call it done. And so I totally agree with you. Like if I was going to look at like an older song I wrote now and think about trying to get a band together and play it live, something like that, I might rearrange some things too. But I think that it would feel very light to do it. And like let's do it for fun. But before I can call the song done, it's weighing on me, you know? So I think there's definitely a lot of truth in what you're saying. I wish I could have that mindset like the whole way through. Like, the way I imagine like some great improvisers feel, like Miles Davis or something, probably wasn't thinking of like um, you know, this must be the quintessential recording of the song. It's like a moment in time. Like we have this band together right now. We're improvising over these changes,
Uh-huh.
and we're capturing that moment. And I think if I could have that mindset towards recording an album, that'd be a beautiful place to be. Um,
Yeah.
but it's hard until like you really feel like okay, I can call that my song and it's done, and I'm proud of it. And then it can continue to have a life of its own after that.
Yeah. Man, and just to be able to have a finished product of man, I'm with you on that end too. And a more recent song that I finished, it's called Fool's Paradise. And I remember sharing it with a friend of mine that I respect. He's a songwriter as well. And he could tell that in the chorus, I don't remember which word it is now, but there was a synonym that could have been used. And he said, "It won't sound like you have such a mouthful and it doesn't take anything away. Would you consider this?" And after changing that word, I was like, "Thank you for helping me finish that song." And now it's time to record it. And but then once again, it's time to get on stage and hey buddies, let's see let's play with it like you said. Let's have some fun and see what happens. And but I do agree with you on that. When there is a burden, it's like proof of work to me. Whether it was taking a test or writing a paper in college or doing a project in the lab, it's I always tried to be one of the first ones done just so I could move on to the next thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that. Well, man, tell me about this journey. This new record is this record 2 or 3? Where you at?
I had an EP before this, and this is the first like full length. So like I said, it took a while to get back around to doing it, and the plan is to keep doing it. So I have a lot of
Yeah.
songs in the backlog, but yeah, this record like um I wanted to do something. I knew that baby was coming, and I
Hmm.
wanted to do something that I can like wrap my hands around and finish it. And so that's why I went with like an acoustic kind of singer-songwriter type of record. Because I have other songs that are not like that style, that are much more band oriented. But I was like, I want to do this. I want to do this fast. I want to like, make tough decisions and like finish a song and move on, right? Um,
Hmm.
and so a lot of this started out with just like going through all my notes, like all my little record voice recordings, and thinking about like what speaks to me, and having this big list of songs, and they're just little bits, and saying, okay, like I'm just gonna pick one and like start working on it, start fleshing it out, turning it into like a real song. Like it might just be like a little bit of a verse. It needs a chorus, it needs lyrics, and just throw myself into that fully. Um, like I'd be at the gym and like writing lyrics on my phone, between sets of working out, and just getting back home and picking the guitar up and trying to work out different sections and complete these songs. And eventually kind of started to see like which songs were gonna make it, and which ones were promising. Um and then the sort of also, I don't think it intentionally started that way, but just noticing where my writing was going, sort of the theme of the album. We talked already about like how I felt, and I still feel like I'm too influenced by what other people think. Like I wanna care about what people who I respect and love think, but not, somebody, who has no connection with me, or is, um, or not looking out for my best interest. And I don't want to be worried about what they're thinking when I'm singing my song or writing or working, but I am. And too often um, I I'm still being honest, but I'm presenting myself, my mannerisms and my style are like imitating the person I'm talking to, as taking on their movements, or like their way of talking, their speed of talking, their volume, the words they use. Um, and I felt like I kind of lost sight of who I was. Like if you strip everything else away, what do I actually want to do with my time? How do I want to talk? What do I want to talk about? And what do I want to write about? And I just felt like that characterized like so many of my relationships and experiences in life, and sources of stress, because not only do you kind of lose sense of yourself because you're trying to please people and kind of conform to their ways, but you don't even become friends with them because people see through that, right? If you're not actually being genuine,
Mm. Very
people can
superficial.
tell. Very superficial. And um, everything I'm saying is honest, but like they could tell there's some like layer of like you're trying to perform for the person. And um and that superficiality is a massive turnoff for people. Like nobody wants to be friends with that. The people you're friends with, a lot of my best friends are since when I was a kid. And when you're a kid, you're completely being yourself, right? Just totally honest,
Yeah,
just like doing.
unapologetically.
And those are like the deepest connections. Um, and so, um, what this, whether I've succeeded or not, getting a little better at not doing that, a lot of this album was about that. Like the first song, "Tune Me Out," is exactly about like being different people um, to people that you meet, and the pain of like that backfiring, actually not even winning you anything. And then so the rest of the songs are really trying to like examine different relationships and friendships in my life in a very transparent way, like absolutely like no bullshit, like be honest with yourself, like what went wrong or what went right. um like, where am I responsible for things that went wrong before, not just blaming other people. And so yeah, that first song is really just setting up this theme of like trying to stop that terrible habit, and being honest, with myself, uh, about my relationships with other people.
Something that's
Um,
hard to do.
yeah,
I
I think
mean,
it's a work in progress. It's easier to do in a song than to actually change your habits, because you can go critique your own lyrics and be like, no, you know what, that's not right. That's not really what I feel. I'm going to change that. But when you already had a conversation, that's in the past. That just happened, right? Um, and like you can be like, damn, like how come I was so like guarded, or trying to be a people pleaser in that conversation instead of just being myself. And you can't go back.
yeah,
So,
you know who you are, and you've opened up a little bit about the first track off of the record. What inspired the naming of it? You know who you are. Is that a call to yourself, or is that a uh call to the critic?
I think um, it was a little bit of a silly title for a very kind of a moody album, but the idea of it was if the song is about you and you listen to it, you're going to know it's about you.
Mhm.
That's kind of where it comes from. So I, like
Little
I said,
tongue in cheek.
yeah, trying to be really, really transparent. Like I think the EP that I released and some of my songs, are like stories, like not necessarily about myself or maybe a little bit influenced by my own experiences, but the songs on this album are all completely personal, completely about real things with real people. And so I just felt like I wasn't putting a lot of like double meanings and cryptic lyrics on this. It's really about my life experiences, and if you were there to experience that with me, you'd probably recognize those vignettes. Um, so yeah,
Was it
that's
is
kind
that
of
as a project like that is was that difficult for you to do? I know a lot of times it's easy to maybe change the name or the name of the place or mask that emotion when talking about people from our past. Of one, maybe we don't want to put them on blast, or two, of maybe they didn't see it the way that we saw it. You know, it's a very hard thing to do.
yeah. I think it's a good question. I think the in this case it wasn't, but I think that's because I hopefully evolved enough writing the songs that um, it doesn't read like a journal of like a 13-year-old kid. As I think when I first started writing songs, a lot of times I couldn't write a song about a thing I'm thinking about because then it would just sound like the complaints of like a naive kid. And sometimes I'd write lyrics when something else in my mind. There might be something about happening in the world in my mind, and I could write a personal song or something personal in my life happening, and I could write a song about politics or something. Because if I focused on it, it would be too like stream of consciousness, just like getting my feelings out. And I think over time, uh, I'm able to actually now like recall something from the past with a little bit more emotional maturity, hopefully, and then the output isn't a completely one-sided um, sort of this complaint, but it's hopefully a faithful perspective on what happened, and I could live with that, even if somebody sees it a little bit differently. If I'm presenting it in a way that I feel is honest and complete, you know.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I get with that. I mean, I'm trying to bring the line of the song to mind. And I think it may be a Jack Johnson line, and that was the influence for you creating this. Was it everybody thinks that everybody knows about somebody else, and I lost it. But the whole thing of it is, we're so tied up in trying to be in everybody else's business and worrying about what everyone else is thinking or doing that we forget about ourselves. And
That's
so,
definitely
uh,
yeah.
so a project like this, man, very heartfelt, and man, it's a beautiful thing to be able to do that. So hats off to you for the project. What about that Beck influence, man? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, like well, I like Beck in general, but specifically that album Sea Change, which is so different from a lot of his other stuff. Like, um, I don't know how it was received when it came out. I'm sure a lot of people didn't see it coming, right? Like from this kind of seems like a goofy dude,
Hmm.
fun music, like creative, like all kinds of instruments, and just drops it down to like a Rhodes, a guitar, some drums, and just like singing about heartbreak. Um, and so I think that kind of thing um, is pretty moving. And there's one song especially, "Lost Cause," if you're familiar with that song.
Hmm.
That's one of the like all timers for me. And so yeah, that album was a big influence. And the other thing, because I think that album was mostly basically about one relationship that came to an end, and that was his experience. You talked about, is it awkward putting people on blast or talking about the past? I feel like I had a little bit of awkwardness in the reverse situation, which is, like I said, I'm married, I have a family, and not all these songs were written in the past like couple of years, right? Some of them are dragging things out from the past and reflecting on those. And it's not going to be one-sided, like, oh, fuck that person. Like, it's not like
Mhm.
that. Uh, both sides messed up, both sides, are good people. And just being able to honestly talk about things in the past and be like, hey, like, I know this is the life that we're living together right now, but there's still things from my past that are stories that might be worth sharing in a song. And my wife was super supportive about that, super comfortable with that. But that's actually the area I felt uncomfortable is not putting someone
Yeah.
on blast from the past, but saying, hey, like was also a part of my life, and there's a song about that that's a meaningful song that I'm going to try to sing, with some passion and put myself into those shoes that I used to inhabit, and and talk about that in an open way.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even think about it from that window. Is yeah, I bet that was something you had to talk to the wife about. 'Cause what is it? It was it track three to where you're talking about it is an old relationship, right? Is that let's see. Let me
Yeah,
pull it
I'm
up.
trying to remember myself. Yeah, I mean, some of the songs are about her, about my wife, and some of them are about people from the past. I think.
I wish you would remember. I think it's yeah, the summer romance song.
Oh yeah, that's about past. Yeah, for sure. And so yeah, just have to just be open up about it and everything. And like I'm pretty open book anyway, right? So there's nothing like it's not like there's new stories. It's more just like um, I'm putting this into my art. It's not just a story from the past, but I'm working on this right now. This is
Yeah.
what I'm doing, and it's something I want to actually share with people. Um, as something that represents part of my life and part of my art.
And also, I guess it's got to bring some closure. I mean, because like you said about earlier about your songwriting, and to be able to say that a song is finished after you finish the song about the particular subject, it has to
Mhm.
bring some closure to it, to where, whew, I can move on now.
Yeah, I think you have to, or it's at least it's going to bring a change because you
Hmm.
have to open up those feelings to be able to write well about it, right? So either you will achieve some closure, and it's possible it can go wrong, and you're just going to open a wound up again, um, and achieve the opposite. But hopefully, get a good song out of it, out of
Yeah.
those emotions. Yeah.
Let's move it up just to a couple of years ago, and many people and places are still recovering.
Mm.
What was the biggest lesson that you learned over the course of the pandemic?
Yeah. The biggest lesson I learned. Let me think about it for a second.
Yeah. I mean, like for me and a lot of the songwriters I talked to, like during the pandemic, was man, I moved and I moved fast because I knew like some of these people I wouldn't be able to talk to when the world starts moving as fast as it usually does, because they're going to be on the road, and
Mm.
they're not going to have time to sit down and talk because they're going to be busy playing and
Yeah.
doing what they do to provide for their family. And my takeaway was like it's really now or never, and I've got to keep moving. And
Mm.
when it came to like my personal work with my craft or songwriting, was it was good that the world had slowed down. That there were a lot of venues that were no longer available to play out because of restrictions, and that was a time to go back to the bedroom and really harness and rehome, or just
Hmm.
maybe a phoenix rising from the ashes kind of scenario, to completely rebrand myself and the way that I do things.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think I might have a different perspective and a little bit of some imposter syndrome that comes with not being a musician full time and having a job that basically I'm able to work from home. And the world became really difficult for a lot of people and not for me. Um, and if anything, like it gave me more time back to give to music and give to my family. And there's definitely some it's I don't know, survivor's guilt is like maybe a term. Even people who just survived got through it, but it was, there were a lot of challenges for them and stuff. And not being in music full time and not like touring, that's not something that, is taken away from me. And I can imagine for a lot of musicians for whom that's like that's a huge part of their life that just went on complete pause. Um, there's a lot of like reflection, like thinking about how what am I going to do instead. For me, like I was fortunate, like I said, that it was an opportunity to like justify working from home more and then making more time for like passions outside of work. Uh, but of course, like the pandemic still impacted just our ability to see our friends and family.
Hmm.
Um, and I think like maybe the biggest lesson there is like I'm a extroverted person, like in the sense that uh, there's never a time I'm like not in the mood to hang out with people or socialize. Even though I'm pretty quiet, but like I'm much happier like making plans than I am to like, oh, I need my recharge time. And you know, uh, you need to figure out what drives you, like what your fuel is, and make sure you still get it, whatever the circumstances are. Because I think it would be easy to for me to just go down like a hole, like if I was completely isolated and just let that happen without trying to find a way to connect with others. So I think for me, the lesson was like, you might not live in the same town, you might not be convenient, you might have a lot going on, but like always make time for other people. Like that's like the most important thing for me and a lot of other people who are like that. You can go to a pretty dark place if you're not connecting with the world. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I like people who happen to come from that perspective, and I get it. Is That's a pretty resounding thing for a lot of people who maybe who do work from home maybe before, and then like you said, now it's kind of justified. But yeah, man, uh, not being able to, and the South was a little bit different than other parts of the United States. Our restrictions, Florida really didn't shut down at all, and then that led to Alabama and Mississippi kind of loosening up after they saw that oh, our constituents probably would like this too. So
Mhm.
we definitely didn't have it near as bad with the restrictions as other parts of the country. So yeah, well, man, do you how often do you play out, or are you happy just having the music online, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, I kind of I didn't want to look too far ahead, to be honest. Like, I think I have a tendency to like look at this huge project and like just stare at it, and plan it. And I felt like, well, I definitely want to have a recording. I want to have something like I can hold on to and make that a regular part of my life. That like, there'll be another album coming, etc. Um, so get that done, and then like, finish that. Then I was like, well, I don't want to just I don't want to just have it myself and make no effort to share with others, you know? And that's I got connected to you through a guy I met basically trying to figure out how do I share my music with other people and try to get it out there because
Yeah. Igor.
it would be a source of regret, I think, if I think I'm proud of my songs and I never try to put them in front of somebody else. It's not going to be for everyone, but I know there's definitely people I listen to that are not for everyone. But they found their niche.
Hmm.
And so that was kind of okay, that was that step. And I think like playing live would be part of that as well. Like I don't right now, but as part of like coming out of this album, I do want to try to play a few shows and potentially turn it into a bigger thing. Like I said, like there's a little bit of with kid, like some of the personal life stuff is a little bit tricky
Hmm.
with tour or anything like that. But at least playing like local shows or and things like that is definitely something that I want to get into.
Oh, absolutely. Well, man, open invitation to my part of the world anytime. We have a great theater at our art council here in Columbus, Mississippi, and
Awesome.
they they allow me to book shows there from time to time, and it's a room that sits about 50 people. And if you ever wanted to come, over here to Alabama or Mississippi, uh, that style of music that you're creating is what resonates with people here. Is so I believe that would pack that room out if you wanted to ever travel down this way.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, and I would love to. Like, we do a lot of trips even with a baby just to go somewhere different, like see some different, meet some people, and we don't push ourselves too much now to try to do too much
Hmm.
sightseeing. Kind of if you get one thing done per day, that's like an achievement. Uh, so that sounds like an awesome, and I really appreciate the invite. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And so, just for those listening, this episode will drop Thursday, but uh, is is the record currently out for public consumption, or when is the drop?
No, trying to figure that out now. So I'm such an amateur at this. Um, and I feel like before I just focus on writing songs, I'm just trying to learn about how this stuff works. So I think it's going to be November. We'll
Hmm.
start releasing like some songs. And from what I heard, like if you break it out into a few releases, it's a little bit better for hoping people on Spotify pick it up. So I'm going to try to release a couple singles and then drop the record um, around November time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really good advice for the way just, music, the industry works today is like you said, if you have an album prepared
Mhm.
in November, that's probably right on cue for this is drop a single in September, give them another taste in October, and then maybe one more single, maybe a week or two before the album drop.
Mhm.
And then, by that time maybe it's made it to a couple of playlists and you got a little spark and people are interested and then boom, here's the release. So I think
I
that's
yeah.
I think that's the way to go, and it's exciting to do it that way.
Yeah.
And I've only put one of my songs on the streamers, and man, it was such a roller coaster, and just tracking the performance and how it's doing, and you really get to see what the world thinks, so to speak, or do they care, or maybe they just haven't found it, or you don't know. There's so many unknowns, but man, it is exciting.
Yeah, but you've recorded music and you print like CDs. I think the podcast that I listened to, I
Yeah,
think
I've
you
got
had
a
mentioned that you have like the physical versions of it.
we cut that was a COVID project. I traveled all over Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee in garages and kitchens, and we did some lo-fi recordings off this mic right here. And man, I'll mail you a copy of it if you'd like to hear it.
Oh yeah,
It's got I think 13 different artists on it,
wow,
and that was voted on by the listeners of the show, and that's who they wanted on the record. So we made
that's
them a
super
record.
nice. That's awesome. You collaborated with them, like those 13 artists, or it's like a kind of
Uh,
compilation of people's
it's
songs.
it's a compilation
Mhm.
of now. We do festivals in this area as well. We call it Porch Fest, and I think there's thousands of them all over across America. So I'm not the Porch Fest, but we're we're happy to do it, and that is where the collaboration is with these artists. Is they'll come down and play it,
Mhm.
and that also is a great experience because this past Porch Fest, April of this year, I think we had over 20. I think it was 27 all running off two stages over 2 days. And what
Mhm.
a time for these musicians, artists, and vendors to meet and collaborate and share ideas. And by the end of it, I mean, uh, the last couple of acts, some of these people they didn't know each other until this festival. And then they got up on stage and played together.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
it was, it's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
And I want to continue to do that. And I would like to give it some legs, and I would like to put that kind of show on the road. Depending on what part of the country we were in, is hey, we're in the California area. We're in Southern California. Who all do we know? And could we throw an event? Could we come up with a venue to do something this special? And I mean, that's my vision for what I would like to see for the future, and
that's
just
awesome.
kind of curate this because that's one thing that we've really been preaching and talking about is there's levels to music, and people at the bottom tend to compete while the people at the top of the music food chain, they cooperate. And the
Mhm.
moment that we began to understand that we're better together,
Mm.
that's when, that's kind of the the tide that raises all ships, and that's something that I'm very interested in doing and being a part of.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I never thought about it that way at all, but I think that's completely right. Um, I don't know who. There's a lot of people who kind of have this philosophy, right? You just give, don't expect anything, right? Just have a mindset of giving, and things kind of work out well for you when you do that. And you don't have to believe in karma or any kind of supernatural forces for that. It's just about building a culture, people around you who gravitate to that and are also givers. Um, and I think that's totally right. Like, I can't imagine how if right now I want to go play a show, it's not going to be easy scraping together like enough people to come and see it, right? But if I work with other people, like listen to their music, like offer to help them, bring my friends to
Hmm.
their show, and get it all together, all of a sudden you have like a little scene. And a
Hmm.
lot of the bands I love, right? Like, um, listen to all those '90s bands, like the Seattle is a scene, right? And um, they're all going to each other's shows. They're all bringing friends to the shows and rooting each other on and being in each other's bands and stuff and swapping drummers and stuff. Um, and that produced amazing music, right?
Yeah. I mean, it happened back in the late 80s, early 90s in Seattle as a music scene. When you think about Pearl Jam, Nirvana, of even Soundgarden, Chris Cornell, and what that produced is, and we have that today. It happens today. It just I don't know if it's because of the internet, but
Mm,
I believe music has never sounded better than what it does today. And like if we could curate something to that effect, no matter where that scene would be, uh, that's our culture. And I think we already have the minds. These people already exist, but have they found each other yet?
mm.
You know,
It's a very
and it's
uplifting
it,
message.
yeah, and it's so funny. I mean that whole Seattle grunge that happened 30 years ago, and we still talk about it.
Yep.
And I mean, and a lot of those guys, they're not with us anymore.
Yeah.
And so, man, it's who knows, but I'm here and I'm ready and I'm excited for what we have going on today. I've what about you, man? What are you into today? We talked a little bit about your influences for this record, such as Beck. What's a daily listener for you? What are you into?
So, uh, what you were just talking about music today, like that's a very uplifting and hopeful message for me because I'd love to like hear more. I felt like I a little bit checked out of like new music a couple of years ago. Um, and I so rarely discover new music now. I feel kind of guilty about having an album and asking people to listen to it if I'm not doing it myself.
Hmm.
But before then, I was always scouring blogs and listening to all kinds of stuff. But I've kind of like, solidified my like favorites. And so some of the artists I love the most obvious one, like listening to this album, especially of my music, is Elliott Smith. Um, I got into him after he passed away, but just was blown away um, by him, and that's something that I always um, go back to regularly. Sometimes, in the making of this album, I intentionally tried to avoid listening to his albums because I didn't want to just try to rip directly from his records,
That's a
knowing that
very that's a very true thing though, man, and you'll
yeah.
do it. I find that like I've been listening to a lot of drive-by truckers and Jason Isbell lately,
Mhm.
and it directly influences my songwriting. And then next thing you know, the idea for the song or even the music for it is sounding just like them. And I was like, I got to get away. I'm just this is like a version, and it's like a weak sauce. I mean, it
Yeah,
already exists.
yeah,
I don't need to recreate this. I need
yeah,
it's no longer a real thing. I'm just mimicking.
yeah. And I don't know if I was successful in even getting far enough away on this album. Like I said, I was trying to go fast. Um, but that's definitely one of the influences. And I love, like I said, all the 90s stuff. I'm a big fan of like Smashing Pumpkins, Red Hot Chili
Oh yeah.
Peppers, alternative stuff like REM. Um, and then going back to like I said, classic rock, the Beatles, Pink Floyd, that kind of stuff. Um, I think like yeah, that's a great point. You talk about you hear your like you play the song back to yourself and you're sounding like somebody else, and um, that's something I find very hard to get away from. I don't know, do you have if you have any advice about how to do that? Maybe one thing that helps sometimes, like sometimes I do work on songs like years after I get the idea for them. I think that can help a little bit because I don't know what I was listening to when I recorded, something for 30 seconds on my phone. So you come back to it like with fresh ears and you're like, okay, let's see where this goes. But
You
I
know
don't
that
know.
the I guess the advice that I would give, there's he goes by John Keys, that's his stage name. He's been on this podcast, and I think that episode is Kerr Carzell. That was his stage name at that time, and he doesn't listen to anybody.
Hmm.
And he is in his own right. Like there is no one in the world like him when it comes to his music and his
Hmm.
approach. And that's why. But I can't do that. Like that's not that would be the advice that he would give. But I don't want to give advice that I can't do because I mean every day I'm listening to music and it's so inspiring and it's all I got into wanting to play music because of people I admire were writing these great songs and I wanted to put I wanted to put my hat in the ring.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's and I do like listen to more podcasts than music as of late. But man, just as a creative spark, I mean, there's nothing like pulling up an old John Prine album or just people that I admire when I'm looking for inspiration. But I don't know how to separate it.
Hmm.
If it inspires the art, I don't know how you can ever completely get away from it.
Yeah, I guess the other side of it is just to embrace it.
Yeah,
Maybe like, and just bring all of yourself to it too. Like I think if you bring all of yourself to the project, like you can't help but make it unique if you don't get in your own way. Um, and then if influences seep in, like let it happen, right? Like even like the greatest songwriters we have, uh, literally would lift sections of songs and stuff like that, right? I was just thinking like top of my head, like "Come Together" by the Beatles, right? The whole verse is like Chuck Berry, right? The whole like the rhythm of it.
hmm
Uh, but then the chorus is like nothing else. It's the Beatles. It's John Lennon, right? And so I think if you just bring all of yourself to a project and you don't hold back at all, even if part of that's going to be like something that came from someone else, and then it's going to be mixed with some other record you listen to that's like a totally different genre
yeah.
and feelings at that moment, and something unique is going to come out of that, like at the end.
And that song in particular, covered by Aerosmith,
Hmm.
they put their own spin on it. Gary Clark Jr., arguably one of our best guitar players of our generation, especially when it comes to the blues, he
Hmm.
covered it, and that his version goes harder than any version of "Come Together" I've ever heard.
Hmm.
And like the story, Gary Clark Jr. He met Dave Grohl, and after Dave Grohl heard him play, Dave gave him an electric guitar. He's like, "You deserve this." So I mean, you never know. And Gary Clark Jr. is he's a younger guy, probably by 20, 25 years when it comes to Dave Grohl, but he blew Dave's socks off. So
Yeah,
who knows?
yeah. I mean, yeah, going back to like full circle, like you're talking about in the beginning, like meeting people from different cultures, right? That's
hmm
one of the obvious joys of music, right? Is like um, when you hear a song, like you're immediately connected to it, right? If it hits you the right way, and that person could be so much older than you, completely different lifestyle. Like you don't even have to relate to the lyrics a lot of times. Like I listen to and like that has nothing to do with my life, and it never will. But it doesn't matter because like the way they're connecting musically with what I love just speaks to me, and I want to hear their story. I want to hear more.
Yeah, and
So, yeah, those two guys are pretty different, right? But it doesn't matter. Like,
just back to who you are of your record is man just a guy from Alabama was just listening to some of the tracks that were sent to me, and I was already uh, going through my past and relationships, and uh, I was transcribing meaning and memory to your words. And man, just think about that power, you know. That's the beauty of art. And I mean, that's why we do what we do, right? Is giving someone an out, giving someone some kind of, you know, when you see a visual art piece and it speaks to you, it doesn't matter at that point to what the artist meant when he painted that mural.
Yeah.
It's the feeling and emotion that it gives you, and through that, it becomes a part of you, and
Yeah.
that's the beauty of art.
Yeah, it has to speak in at that level. Like I forgot who said this also, especially this one. I always should give credit to the right songwriter. But because music has like the also has a, let's say, intellectual side of it, right? Or like the craftsmanship and music theory and all this kind of stuff. And I like that too. Like a lot of the bands I love, had a really interesting chord changes or really interesting
Uh,
instrumentation and stuff.
I always think about Radiohead.
Radiohead's a good example, yeah. But like the songs have to hit you in the gut first. Like if you're aiming for the head, you're gonna miss every time. If you aim for the gut and you get that first, then you could add on whatever you want on top of it, right? And that's the difference between like a Radiohead or a Pink Floyd for me versus like a lot of, let's say, prog rock bands that I don't connect with that do really interesting things, but um, I don't think there's a foundation of like a song that hits me in the heart first. Um, so yeah, you have to write a song in a way that transcends the actual what that song means to you and the medium and hit somebody else in the gut. And then if you get that right, then you can develop a style on top of that, which can be, obviously there's so many different genres and so many bands that we love that sound very unique. But that has to be the core for me.
Well, I mean, job accomplished, man. Like, I've really enjoyed sitting down with your record, and man, I'm excited and also a little jealous of those who haven't heard it yet. You know, because they're gonna have their own takeaways from it. So, congratulations once again, man. It was a work worth doing, and I'm glad you did it. And especially like when you were talking about your EP or maybe previous work, to maybe you were a little more electric, but to strip everything down, just you and acoustic and these winding chord progressions and quick, quick changes. And whoa, that verse came out of nowhere, or, whatever the feeling of the song is, man, job well done. So, uh, you got proof of work, and I just can't wait till you begin to share it with the rest of the world, man.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alan.
Yeah. So, man, just maybe a couple more questions to walk it out the door is if people are interested in following you and your music, social media, or what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, a little bit late to the Instagram game, but that's why I'm trying to center things right now. So it's Mad Good Band on Instagram. Yep.
Right on.
Best place to start. Hit me up
Right
there.
on. Well, cool, man. And just with the reels there, they work great. So, I mean, and I would like it too, and you may already do it, but come up with a 30 to 50-second snippet of the songs of you playing and sharing, and just put that out there for people to kind of get a feel for it. And that
Yeah.
might work. That might work well with the singles as you release them.
Hmm.
That way, people can kind of see what it is.
Totally. Yeah. I could use all the advice in the world about how to get the music out there for sure. And I really appreciate you taking the
Yeah.
time to talk to me and to listen, especially.
Well, man, it's been great hearing your story, and I've like Porch Talk. I mean, that's what it's all about, is people like you who are putting their hat in the ring and getting out there and want to give it a shot. So I've really enjoyed getting to know you and having this conversation, and like prying your mind. And thank you for being open, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, cool. Well, last question to walk it out the door, just kind of out in left field. What books are you reading right now?
That's a great question. So I do like to read, and my family, like I mentioned earlier, some of them moved to Israel.
Hmm.
Some moved to the States, and me and my wife, who's never been there, and our baby, who's of course never been there. We're going to head over there in October,
Oh,
and I want to be like a good tour guide and share with her my culture and different historical sites and stuff, and be able to share things with her. And so I'm listening to an audiobook of a history of Israel. I got a couple of different books of that nature queued up. Hopefully, I'm a wealth of knowledge by the time we land, and I'll have a lot to say.
well, right on, dude. Well, maybe we'll get back on the horn and you can tell me some things about Israel because it's just like Kiev. It has a historical precedence and it's a very important place in the world, you know.
Yeah, I think anytime you go somewhere with a great history of anything, you just feel different once you land, and
Hmm.
it could be like you know a music studio, and it could where some classics were recorded, and it could just be a country where a lot of stuff happened over thousands of years. So
Right on. Well, Constantine and or Mad Good, man. Thank you so much for your time, man. Let's sign her on out.
yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.